Okay, so Jim Sterling made a video just recently, hours before I'm uploading this one. It's called the Single Player Healthcare. And I just wanted to kind of add on to it because this is really true. I mean, this is, some people might say you're preaching to the choir because there's people who already know this anyways. But there's something I really want to expand upon that Jim Sterling once stated about this, and I agree with him 110%. Anybody who thinks that single player games are dying, I'm here to explain to you why this is never going to happen. Because most of the video games in the video game industry, we're not just talking about, some of the biggest things that people usually get confused with is that when people think about the video game industry nowadays, some people are actually just talking about the AAA industry or the AA industry or A industry. Again, like the bigger titles, but there are so many games out there that people don't talk about, that people don't know exist, that if we let's just take a look at let's look at every possibility here. Okay, so there's a website called GameFAQs, GAMEQAFS. It always, for the most part, has every game listed on its release date, and it will tell you every single, if you really want to say how many games are in a specific library, Japanese only releases, English only releases, whatever, it'll tell you, and it will tell you how many single player games there are, how many online games there are. And there are so many single-player games that there's just no way that the video game industry, going the route that it is that single-player games would ever die, because most of those games are single-player games. Not to mention, people play a lot of retro games, so they're playing single-player games. And again, GameFAQs. If any question you have, if you even want me to look something up for you, believe me, I can do it. But I'm telling you right now that the video game industry is not going to die with single-player games, because especially if you look at what online games are pretty much doing for the most part, like microtransactions, DLC, loot boxes, seasons passes, patches, glitches that should be fixed. Not just the AAA title games that are single player games. Again, even Jim Sterling, if you're watching this video, or Jim Sterling fans that are watching this video, because maybe the title's going to be the same. I wanted to start off by also saying that, you would probably even agree with what I'm saying, because, you realize that, that's what mostly Jim Sterling himself has talked about on his channel, is that the AAA industry really does have a lot more problems than if we were just to look at some underrated games. And I'm going to tell you, there are still a lot of games that Japan still gets that are really good, that for whatever reason, I don't even understand how they didn't translate it. They probably didn't think too many people would buy it over here. And that's sad, because there's a lot of games out there that have gone unnoticed. Mostly, again, not just single-player games, but some really good local games that you could get that are complete, they're long, you can play them more than once, you can enjoy them, they're fairly difficult. What makes a game, And that's kind of why I'm on this channel. Again, not trying to advertise myself here, because of this, but I just want to say that if you're interested in learning different games, I do reviews of games you've never heard of. So, if you're interested in that kind of thing, hang around, check it out. If you want certain games, if you want to know, you need help finding certain games, I can recommend you any game you want. You just tell me what kind of games you're into. I can find it for you just like that. And I recommend even going to GameFAQs. They can give you a list of games that exist, and it's probably the best website I use to really organize what games exist, which ones I don't have, and then I go on Amazon and try to find them. It's just so cool. It really is. You can really learn how many different games are out there and how many games you've really never even seen, and just in the nutshell, I've seen so many of them myself. I even own a lot of them, physically and digitally, and I've gotten them off the internet too, so there's that as well. But then again, who doesn't do that in this day and age? But let's be honest though, you got people that, they'll go on the internet, there's just so many games out there, you would be shocked that you don't even know how many of them exist, what retro games or just even games in the past, and games nowadays, there's good games that are still being made nowadays, but you have to look even harder to find them because of all the publicity, all the advertisement. People don't talk about it for the most part. But I just wanted to make this short video, kind of explaining this, because again, the video game industry is not dying. If anything, it's as long as it's still making money, and as long as not every game is online. And this will be the most important thing I'm talking about, is that it will be a single player game. If it's not an online game, it's a single player game, for the most part. So if you think about that, that's how the video game industry was. Not to mention, Single-player games existed before online games even existed. So the biggest thing is we used to have single-player games, but then we used to have like multiplayer games, and then we had online games, and we just pretty much gone from there. But if you think about it, single-player games are not dead, and they never will be dead because people still play them, people still make them. Indie games are still being made, video games are still being made. There are still single-player games that people like to play because they like this kind of thing, or multiplayer games. As long as video games are still being made, period, there will still be different kinds of video games. And therefore, we should take it with a grain of salt, that when people say that, the video game industry is dying, they're not implying that the video game industry is dead. Maybe it's going through a change that people don't like. Again, microtransactions, DLC, seasons passes, pay to win, just all the extra tack-on fees that shouldn't exist. Internet subscription fees, unnecessary things, put it that way. Something that should be free that you have to pay for. Something that was originally in the game that you have to pay for, that you've probably already paid for, but they want you to pay for it again somehow, and legally can get away with it somehow. So again, something like that. So again, comment, rate, subscribe, favorite, share this video. Hopefully this works. Jim is a real interesting guy, so that's kind of why I wanted to add on to this, because I translate video games. I play a lot of Japanese-only games, and I'm going to tell you right now that there's a ton of them out there that you would be surprised that nobody would ever see the day of life unless somebody told them that.